Hello, welcome to the table. So it has arrived, Eagle Leader. I was doing a Hornet Leader playthrough where I was mishmashing multiple campaigns together. I hope you'll forgive me and understand that we're moving to the new shiny object, which is the Eagle Leader. Um, so I won't be continuing that, although I do like the concept, and you'll probably see me come back to it. Um, so Eagle Leader is here. It has taken me uh, 2 days now to sort through the pieces, and I created a spreadsheet of all the pilots because pilot selection is something I take seriously. um, I'm going to show you in a second. This thing has a massive amount of components to it. Um, Not different components, mind you, but like the number of pilots and the cards, especially if you get all the expansions. It's I mean, I hesitate saying it, but it's too much. Um, but at the same time, it's glorious. I honestly don't know which opinion I have. Like I have feelings that it's too much, and then I also have, oh my gosh, this is glorious. At the same, like I have both of those emotions at the same time, or the responses. So let me just be real clear, because I know like some of you don't like the analysis part. Um, this video is going to be pure analysis. I'm actually on my computer. I'm going to show you all the pilots in the game. We're going to do some analysis on the pilots and what the game has to offer. Um, the actual playthrough will be a next video. It will not be in this video at all. So if you're here just for the playthrough, just skip this. And um, and I just wanted to get that out of the way. Uh, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the mechanics of the game and the just the entire strategy of selecting your pilots. It's a big component to the game, in my opinion. In Hornet Leader, there were some pilots that I thought were objectively worse than others, and and I know objectively can seem subjective to some people, but I have criteria that I can specifically lay out and tell you that this pilot is objectively better than that one. And so if you're playing the game with that one instead of this one, you're giving yourself a handicap, or you're making the game harder on you than you need to. Um, Eagle Leader still has that same concept, except because there are so many expansions and it does so much, it muddies the water. And when we start analyzing the pilots, I can talk about that some more. But we're going to flip over to the spreadsheet now, and I just want to show you that the pilots in the game, you can see I start on row 4 here, and I'm just going to scroll down. That's 190 rows of pilots. So there's 190 pilots on this tab. And then with the Aces expansion, we get another 54 more. So we're just under 250 total pilots in the game. That is an extremely large amount of pilots. On a given mission, and that's what I have over here, you're going to be able to take a total of 12. So, and that's a long campaign. This is for a long campaign. For a shorter or medium, it's even less. So, on one long campaign, you can take 12 pilots out of 250. I mean, it's really bloated. Um, and that's why I'm so torn. Is that glorious, or is that just too much? Um, After typing all this in for 2 days, it feels like too much right now. But I haven't played the game. Um, so let's talk about some things. So what I do have here is just a reminder of what you need to understand when you approach. As you know, I only play long campaigns. Um, with the long campaign, you have to take one noob, two green, six average, two skilled, and one veteran. It's just a normal bell curve with all the average being in the middle. Um, so that should be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, that's 12. The I have Corsair Leader, which introduced the concept of aces and gung ho, but in this game, aces and gung ho are different. One thing to note is that aces aren't explained at all. They're not explained in the primary rulebook, and the aces expansion has 0 rules included with it. So um, I don't, I, you know, I, I'm trying to carefully think of my words here. DVG just screws up in the most horrendous ways sometimes, and I know somebody right now is getting really defensive from DVG. Um, and the thing is like the criticism is earned, and they like lay out, okay, we have over 3,000 cards, and the amount of errors that we have is less than 1%. The errors are egregious. They're egregious, and to be completely missing the Aces expansion rules is egregious. I'm sorry. It is. It's egregious. I don't care if it's less than 1% of your overall component quality. It's egregious. And it's unexcusable. Now, is it easily fixed? Yes. And that's why I love you, DVG, and that's why I still play your games, but it's still egregious. And to get defensive about it, the hardest thing is like if you watch my YouTube comments when people criticize me, I'm defensive. So I mean I get it. I understand why you want to defend yourself, but there's no defense for missing the Aces rulebook. None. Now, with that said, on Board Game Geek, if I am to trust the source, which the source is not the designer, they're saying that you can choose a ace on 1, 2, or 3, depending on if you're doing short, medium, or long campaign. So in a long campaign, you can choose 3 aces. Now, an ace is a legendary pilot um, who is maxed out. They don't get any more experience points because they're at the max level here. And by the way, those aces replace average. So with the aces expansion, you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 3. That's the way the distribution works with the aces expansion. It seems off to me, but at the same time, it was way better than the first proposal. First proposal was to spend 10 SOs, 20 SOs, or 30 SOs. Well, I took a look at the campaigns, and the average starting SO for a long campaign was 30. So if your average starting SO is 30 and it's going to cost you 30 just to get one ace, there's no way in Hades I'm ever going to choose an ace, and it's the most worthless expansion ever. At least in this situation where you could choose 1, 2, or 3, that makes it fair. Now the expansion actually is worth getting and having. And all I have to say is I really like it. But the this change compared to Corsair Leader um, does change the strategy for selecting your pilots. It's not just a hey, I need to grab 3 aces because guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to grab 3 aces. Because I think that 3 aces to start your campaign is going to be a big leg up. The more important thing is that because they give experience points to other pilots, one of the factors when you're choosing your pilots is you do have to worry about how many experience points it takes to level them up. Because there's not enough experience points in the game to get to higher levels, and so that pilot is going to constantly lag behind the others in terms of level. Well, now that you have ace pilots, if you can give your experience points to those other pilots, well, that means that pilot, instead of just getting 2 experience points for the mission, they're now getting 4. They're going to get their 2 that they get for participating on the mission, and they're going to get the 2 from the ace pilot. So it really opens doors that in Hornet Leader you didn't have open. And then the other thing is that the skills themselves there's a tremendous amount of skills available in the game, and they also wildly change your strategy for forming your pilot squad. All of this is to say is that Eagle Leader makes some of the bad looking pilots actually look good. Like, again, in Hornet Leader, I could objectively. Maverick is the one that comes to mind because he's the Top Gun name, right? Maverick is a horrible. It's objectively worse than Teflon or Talon or Bear. Bear is a really good one, in fact. Cowboy is objectively better. Um, like I'm going through all these in my head, and Maverick is objectively worse. And why was it worse? Well, it took 1,000,000 experience points to level him up. That's the first reason. The second reason is he had no cool, and Maverick actually might have had some. I can't remember offhand, but the point is like I could objectively tell you why you never want to use Maverick. In this one, it's if you really wanted to use a pilot like Maverick, who is objectively worse than the other one side by side, there's things like the Aces expansion and the skills that are added to the game that level the playing field. That's all I'm trying to get at. Now, what are the expansions? There's minor NATO nations, Italy, France, experimental planes, which that throws a big monkey wrench. We'll talk about that. Um, Greece, Japan, Aces, and Germany and UK. After going through everything and sorting all the components, here's my thoughts. In terms of most impact to Eagle Leader, Aces is a very large impact. Just for what I just explained. I mean, the fact that you get to choose 3 of them at the start of a mission, or campaign, I mean, that significantly changes the game if you want to get Aces. The second one that significantly changes the game is experimental planes. Um, I think they called it experimental equipment or whatever, but there's a very large, like there's some experimental planes we're going to look at that are pretty wild in terms of what they do. They added game breaking or at least unique game elements to these pilots or planes, if you will. Planes and pilots are synonymous in this game. Um, so it really does change the game quite a lot. The Japan has its own unique skills called Bushido, and then there's also the skill called Gung Ho, which I think is Americans have it, but it's the exact same mechanic as Bushido. In Corsair Leader, Gung Ho meant something completely different. And Gung Ho was broken, by the way. The whole Corsair Leader game is broken because of Gung Ho. I showed that in my playthrough. It made the game tremendously easy. Um, I basically just chose pilots who had Gung Ho, and I took skills that gave them Gung Ho back, and I was able to go and not even roll dice and just win all the time. So uh, I am glad that they changed the Gung Ho rules. The Bushido and Gung Ho rules in this game are very interesting. We'll talk about those in a second. I actually they don't suck. Let's just put it that way. It does make you want to take those types of planes. So they're very good. Now, the minor NATO nations have unique skills that are just for those minor nations. So they bring some interesting skills to the mix. Everything else is flavor. However, Italy, France, Greece, and even Japan, I think Germany and UK also do it. You get extra campaign maps with them. So if anything, you're buying them for the campaign maps. They do give you pilots that are unique to that country, and a lot of them actually give you skills that are unique to that country. And we'll go over that in a second. But the biggest, they're not game breaking or changing the game very much. In fact, after typing all these in, the pilots sort of blend, and it becomes, man, this one just looks like that one. The things that separate them is the skills you can get. Some nations have specific skills only for pilots of that nation. So that's the key thing. And then a lot of these expansions give you new campaign maps, which is just more fun, right? You have more campaigns, more things to do. And when they give you more campaigns, some of them actually give you extra target cards. The base game has, so Hornet Leader had 60 target cards. And the Hornet Leader Air expansion had 60 more alternative target cards. So there was 60 total in each one. In the base game on this one, it's only 50, if I remember correctly. And then after adding all the expansions, we're up to like, I think it's 75, 78. We can check it once we start playing. But it's all the way up into the 70s now, the number of targets. So some of these expansions added more targets to the target deck. And they added more campaign uh, sheets. So you have more campaign choices. And of course, there's a lot of possibilities of, trying to do that campaign with only pilots of that nation. Like, you can get pretty creative. Now, the rules make it very clear you can select and intermix any of these nations together. You don't have to do an all Japanese, mission. Um, but there's no reason that's stopping you from doing that either. Um, anyways, I just wanted to get all that out of the way so you understand how the nations mix and how the pilot selection rules sort of work. And then also just even like, each of these expansions are $30 each American. So, what does, which ones are, so this is gameplay impact. Gameplay impact. This is new campaign and target cards, which we're going to call NCTC, right? So this is NCTC. And then Japan plus Bushido. NCTC. We have another one there and another one there. And this one is unique skills. So there you go. That's the and I am generalizing some of these. I'm not saying that France has nothing else with it. Each one of these has a giant stack of pilots that are specific to that nation. We'll see that in a second. And because of that, that's how we get to the 250 pilots available in the game. So let me show you the pilots real quick. And what you're looking at here is a lot of numbers. And some people gloss over. Like, I literally work with people that if I showed them a spreadsheet like this, they would just be incapable of understanding it, even if I held their hand like they were a 4-year-old. And if you're one of those people, I apologize. But it's very simple. All I did was just list what's on their cards. So this is everything that's on their cards just laid out in a spreadsheet so we could see it. So, for example, this is the pilot called Rondo. He's an F-15C Eagle pilot. Those pilots are available from 1976 on. This is for campaign purposes. And they have 8 weight points. So this is just when you're trying to select a pilot for a mission. If your mission is in 1965, well, these are all out. You can't select any of these because they're all 1976. So that's the goal of this spreadsheet, is to help you to figure out, okay, what pilots do I want for this mission? The next thing it does is I went through every card. So this is their noob card. This is their green card. This is their average, skilled, veteran, and then their legendary status. They're really not ace on this sheet, but they're legendary. I'll explain the stuff to the right in a second. So Rondo here has 0 cool, 0 situational awareness. That's what the SA stands for. -1 to his air-to-air rules, and he is not even allowed to do air-to-ground because these are anti-air pilots. If you go down here to Queso, he's flying a Corsair. You can see it's 0, 0, -2 air-to-air, -1 air-to-ground, and it takes him 3 experience points to level up to green. That's what this is. Then once he gets to green, his stats change to 0, 0, -1, 1. And then it takes him 4 more experience points to get to average, and so forth. And it goes like this all the way until he gets to legendary, which is the highest level possible. And at the highest level, you can see he has 1 cool, 3 situational awareness, 1 air-to-air, and +3 air-to-ground. It's a Corsair. That's a bomber. So his air-to-ground is what is going to matter more. Next thing to understand in all this is if you see the green highlight, that means that they're a fast pilot. Everything else is slow. So Pala here is a slow pilot until he becomes legendary. Then he becomes a fast pilot. And all I did was I just highlighted the skill to show that. And these guys don't have air-to-ground abilities. So when you get to, and actually I just screwed up here. This is a situation where it really should look like this. I mean, he's fast even if he tries to do air-to-air, even though that's not his specialty. And you can see I fixed it and did it more consistently from that point forward. And look at this pilot here. This is a German pilot, this X-31. He's fast even as a noob. He's fast all the way through. There's 2 German pilots. And let's talk about this. This X-31 is the experimental aircraft expansion. So these are all experimental aircraft, starting from the Tiger Shark, going all the way down to, I want to say here. Yeah, the Lion. So these are all experimental aircraft. So the German experimental aircraft, its big shtick is that these pilots are fast throughout the whole campaign. And I mean, here you got fantastic stats. 3 air-to-air and 3 air-to-ground. I mean, that's a great plane. And it's Greed from Germany, 1985 to 2000. You do have to pay SO points to get this pilot. His only issue is his weight point limit is 6. But, I mean, my goodness. Fast all the time. At Legendary is awesome. And before I get into all the experimental planes, let's talk about the last thing, which are these columns here. What I did here is this is the number of, here, and I'm going to click on it. See how it highlights? This is the number of experience points that you need to go from noob to vet for that pilot. This is the number of experience points to go from noob to ace. This is the number to go from green to vet and green to ace. So if you skip the noob and you just go straight to green, and why is that important? Well, as we said, you got to pick 1 noob and 2 greens in your squad. So if you have to pick 1 noob and 2 greens, you don't want to pick one that's going to take 23 experience points and 32 to get to veteran or ace. Because you can see the veteran and ace is where the stats start to get really good for all the pilots. So if you pick one that's going to take forever to get there, you just made a horrible choice. This one here, it only takes 16 to go from noob to vet and 22 to go from noob to ace. Look at that. That takes 23 just to get to vet. I'm already an ace by the time, and I'm ace and legendary are interchangeable here. So, and look at that. It's only 19 if I start at green. So this pilot here, Gucci, excuse me, is quite Gucci in that regard. So now these numbers you see at the top are the average for all 196 pilots, 193 pilots, yeah, 189 pilots, actually, to be precise. The ace pilots are on their own tab, and the reason they're on their own tab is they don't level up. So this whole concept is 0. None of these columns matter for ace pilots. Ace pilots are this all the time. So that's why I put ace on their own tab. So they don't throw off my averages and my numbers here. Okay, so taking these pilots, the average noob to vet pilot is 18 to 19 experience points. The average noob to ace is 27 experience points to 28. Green to vet is 15 to 16, and green to ace is 25, actually right on the nose. So What are our takeaways here? If you're choosing a noob or a green pilot, you want to make sure that your numbers are as good as the average or better. It's just math. So if I choose this one that's 23, that's a horrible choice for a noob or for green, because these numbers are way higher than the average. Now, I may want this pilot, and there's nothing wrong with you wanting the pilot. It's just that don't make him your noob or your green pilot, is all I'm trying to say. So you have to have somebody be your noob or green pilot. Well, that's where this little chart is going to be helpful to you. So if the average is 18 and I find one here that has a 15, holy smokes. Who is that, by the way? That is Chimp. So Chimp is a fantastic candidate to be your noob. And yeah, does his stats look good at noob? No. But nobody's stats at noob are good. But he can level up quick. That's the thing. So he will very quickly get up into the ranks with everybody else, and then all you have to do is just be satisfied with his higher level ranks stats, and you're fine. Now, bear in mind that the Ace pilot, if you from the Aces expansion, will give his experience points to someone else. So you could use that to make this guy level up even quicker. Now you could argue, well, why can't I have this guy then? If I can just give him my experience points, then that 23 becomes a lower number. You're not wrong. It's just that you might still want to give him the experience points, but I would start him at average. I would still try to find somebody else who's got lower requirements to level up. Um, yes, you can give experience points to anybody, but you'd have to be like hard pressed or absolutely convinced that there's nobody with the lower numbers that you want. You only want the people with the higher numbers. And if that's the case, that would be a situation where you got to look at it with that mindset. And yeah, you give all your experience points to a guy like this to make it possible for him to level up reasonably. Yeah, you absolutely can. And that's why I said that things get a little muddier. But in my mind, this is an extremely valuable chart to look at for your pilots. And if you go down, like look at this set of pilots here. These are the Corsairs. Look at that. These are really high numbers, except for one right here. But to get to Ace, look at that. That's a huge jump. And then you can see right here, it takes 12 experience points to get to Ace. So now another thing to take away is Noob to Vet is 18, Green to Vet is 15. And I know there's some change in there. I'm rounding down. The difference is 3. So the average noob needs 3 experience points to level up. And you can look over here, and you can see that it more or less does that, but like Weasel here is 5. That's a ridiculously high one. You don't want him to be your noob. Now, you're going to see, though, that Weasel's going to flesh himself out here. Right here, that's a big number, and then all of a sudden it drops tremendously. Because if you start him as a green, his numbers look a lot better. But see, even then, it's still worse than the 15 average. Because you can see there's a lot better averages than 15. So Weasel's just a horrible one to have, but here's one of the reasons why. And this is the other one. Look, that's a 6, when the average for green is a lot lower as well. His experience points needed when he's lower level is tremendously bad. But then if you get into average, yeah, it's still a 6, and that's a 6 again, and then it's a 9. But those are a lot more reasonable. I didn't focus on everything. For me, the goal of these columns is solving who's going to be my noob and who's going to be my 2 greens. Like, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for somebody who has the right stats that you want, because that's important, right? You want them to have the stats you want, but you also want them to be able to level up in a reasonable manner. Okay, so I think I talked that to death. The other thing to note is that the nation is here. Then, of course, some of them are just NATO. It doesn't specify the nation. And those come with the base game. Then eventually you get to Japan, which I think these 3 come with the base game. Now with Japan, you have this concept called Bushido. Now what you're seeing here is these slashes with the numbers are just noob, green, average, skilled, veteran, legendaries. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 promotion levels, right? And then you see here there's 6 numbers. That's all I'm trying to represent. Now what does Bushido do? Bushido is if you take damage. Now remember, damage is a sight or a bandit shot at you and they actually hit you. You're going to have to lose all of your equipment and then fly home. Although the latest errata that I saw is you can't fly home. You have to stay with your squad. You just don't have any equipment with you. If you get destroyed, then of course that's really bad, and you have to do a recovery. Well, Bushido lets you ignore a damage or a destroyed, and these are tokens. So you get 2 of them at each of these promotion levels, and I think once you use them, they're gone for the rest of the game. But you do get 2. So by the time you get to average here, so this is green, and then I'm sorry, noob, green, and then this is average, and then this is skilled, veteran, and then legendary. So I mean, this person is going to accumulate 8 of those Bushido tokens. So 8 times they could get shot and damaged or destroyed, and they can spend one of those tokens to ignore it. I think they take stress, and I have all the skills explained on the Aces tab, so we'll go there in a second and go through all those. But that's what Bushido is, and if you ever see Gung Ho, it's the exact same concept. It's just they're not Japanese pilots, so it's just a different name for the same thing. So these Japanese pilots, all of them have the Bushido thing. Next up, here you can see there's some Aussies and USA pilots for the Aardvarks and so forth. But then eventually we get to, and here you can see there's some UK pilots, Canadians, and more NATO. And I think once we finish here at the Ravens, now the Ravens are weird. They're sort of like your Prowlers and Growlers, except they have like a lot more abilities. And I didn't have a great way of representing them, but they still level up, so I put their experience points in. But they do the ECM jamming, but they have skills in their ECM jamming, and they do different types of ECM jamming. They're a lot more complex. We'll get into that when we start playing and looking at the card. But the Ravens are very interesting little critters. But think of them like the Prowlers and Growlers, and you're good to go. Now, but they do way more than just -1 to the enemy roll. That's all I'm trying to say, is there's a lot of types of things that they can impact in the game. Now, starting at the Tiger Shark, like I said, now these are interesting, and I tried to put in the notes, like, what is their shtick? So the Tiger Shark, all those pilots get no stress for evasion. So normally you take 2 stress when you evade. If you have an ECM pod, you only have to take 1 stress. I have to look in Eagle Leader because in their the player guide, it says it's 1 stress even if you don't have an ECM pod, but I think that's an error in their player guide. I have to look in the actual rule book, but I'm telling you Hornet Leader rules. But regardless, they don't take any stress at all. So you always roll 2 dice for evasion, and there's no penalty for doing so. So there's 2 pilots in the game. If you take a Tiger Shark with you, they get that privilege. Now, here's another one. The Super Tomcats, there's 2 of these in the game. They get an air to ground of +2 as long as they're shooting 1 or more range away. So like the Mavericks, for example. If they're dropping into MK82s, 83s, 84s, those are over target, right? Range 0, those don't count. But if they're shooting Mavericks or missile-based, like harpoons, whatever, they get a +2 to all their air-to-ground rolls. And so this guy here, who has a +3/+3, that's actually a +3/+5. So very interesting Remember, I said the experimental aircraft really break the game a bit, and that's one of the ways. Now, this next two, there's no weight point penalty. So the F-15 STOL, I don't remember what that stands for. Um, they have no weight point penalty, so they can do all the deep missions, etc., etc. Now here, this next one is air-to-air +2, as long as it's one or more range. Now this is far more useful, because bombing, sometimes you have to go over the target to bomb, depending on the target. But air-to-air, I always want to avoid zero-range combat. I want to shoot my stuff from far away. I want to use my Phoenix missiles or my AIM-192s, right? Or is it 120s? Yeah, it's 120s. The AMRAAMs is what I'm thinking of. I want to shoot all those as far away as possible. So you get a +2 against everything far away, and those are the F-29s. And I did find it funny, that's Pride and Prejudice. The F-16XL. So those, I couldn't find a benefit. Like, why would I choose this versus something else? We'll look at those cards again, but I couldn't find anything that was unique about them other than they're just a very large F-16. And why am I... There we go. So I don't know. And you have to pay to use them, of course. They have a weight point of 10, which is fairly decent. But I didn't see anything that just jumped out at me, although they seem to level up really quick, which is quite good. The F-18 Harv, their bonus was these pilots can go fast any one of the 5 turns. So there's 5 turns on a mission when you're over target. During any one of those turns, they can choose to go fast. And of course, none of them are going to be fast, right? They're going to be slow pilots. But you get to choose one time to be fast, and they still get situational awareness. So they can make themselves go fast, for that situation. Now, I'm assuming that if they choose to go fast, that means they can't also go slow. Like, situational awareness lets them do both. It doesn't explain, because this game doesn't come with rulebooks for any of the expansions. So, sorry, I'm ranting a little bit, but this is one of those immediate questions. Like, okay, if they choose to go fast, can they still go slow? Or is that fast in replacing the slow? That's the thing I don't know. But anyways, it's a very interesting plane. We talked about the German ones. Those are fast all the time. And then the next one, the Lion. Now these are interesting, and they have the Gung Ho, which is the same as Bushido. So the Lions they're normal planes, but basically, if they take damage or get destroyed, you could just spend your tokens and say nope. Just like the Bushido can. Then after this point, starting from here going down, we're getting into the expansion packs. So here you can see all the French pilots. I do have some UK ones mixed in because they both fly similar planes, although some stats do change. So you got these 2 Jaguars here. The French Jaguar is 73 to 2005. The British is 74 to 2006. And then the French, you gain 1, 2, or 3 by taking them because they're considered to be an inferior aircraft. But if you do it with the UK, you gain 2, 4, and 6. So the UK pilots get you more SO points than the French for deciding to take them on the mission. So, I'll let you decide, what's good or what's bad in this. But this is where the numbers start to really, they're all blending together. But if you want to choose French to be in your mission, I mean, there's a nice selection. I'll give it that much. And then here you can see all the Japanese ones, and then all the Bushido starts to kick in, right, for the Japan. Then the Hellenistic, which I just call them the Greeks. So here you got all the Greece pilots, and then Italy has their share. There is one pilot, Fiore, in Italy, where he is fast at the skilled level, but then he's slow as a veteran, and then he's fast again. And I want to say, I want to believe that that's a typo. But that's what happens. And I just put a note here that that's intentional. Because like when I see this, I think, oh, I must have made a mistake and forgot to fill that in. That's not the case. Then we got some German pilots because it's the German UK expansion. So we get those in. And then this is the minor nations, minor NATO. You have Portugal, Belgium, 3 Denmark, 2 Turkey, 3 Netherlands, 3 Spain, and 3 Norway. Each with their various skills, etc. Now, why would you choose some of these minor nation NATO other than maybe you're from that country and you just have a lot of hometown pride? Some of it is over here in the ACES tab. So before I talk about the ACES, there are skills in the game. Then there are skills that are for NATO. So they have to be NATO pilots. So those few pilots that had the NATO next to them, these are for them. Then here's the, for example, if you choose Denmark, they get 1 extra experience point each mission. That all of a sudden makes Denmark a little attractive. It's like, oh, that sounds really good. Portugal, the first 2 SO points on each mission is free. So, and I think it's for that pilot. So I don't think you can just spend it on anybody. But, you know, you can get, I don't even remember what the SO, like the Phoenix Rockets or the GBUs or whatever. First 2 SO points, free. Just because they're from Portugal. Belgium, it's an expend, which means it's only a once per campaign use. But you could suffer 3 stress, and you get a modifier to your die roll equal to that stress. So if you're doing an air-to-air attack or an air-to-ground, if you take 3 stress, you could add +3 to your roll. You know, that's to make sure you really get the target. Norway has another expend that does the same thing. Well, it adds +3 to air-to-air or air-to-ground, but you don't have to take any stress to do it. But it's a once per campaign, again, thing where you can just add 3 to one of your rolls. Turkey, it's another expend where you can ignore damage. It's like Bushido, exactly the same as Bushido, except you only have 1 charge or 1 use of it. Oh, no. This is for any aircraft, not just the Turkey aircraft, so they can protect the entire squadron. That's why this is powerful. So you can ignore damage destroyed for anybody that's on the mission with you. So somebody else gets destroyed, you could, if you have somebody from Turkey on the mission, they can say nope and block it. But it's just a 1 use. Netherlands have this PNNM when they fly on a mission with 2, 3, or 4 aircraft. It has to be that exact number. They get to add +1 to attack rolls against the target. So it's going to boost bombing. I didn't look at Netherlands to see, are they bombers? They're the F-16s. Yeah, so they do have some good air-to-ground capabilities. But yeah, so, but they have to, if they're on missions with larger number of planes or pilots, then it doesn't work. Just 2, 3, or 4. It has to be. So really weird skill. For the Turkey, you see it's 2 Phantoms, and so forth. So getting back to the skills here, Spain ignores stress from evasion, but only if they're at high altitude. If they're at low altitude, then they have to take stress, like normal. So that's your minor NATO expansion. Japan, you got your Bushido. There's a compassion and a justice. So the Bushido compassion, if you expend that, it replenishes Bushido counters for all aircraft in your squadron. So if you have an all Japanese squadron, you go through all your Bushido counters, you can spend this skill, and everybody in your squadron gets maximum level back. This Bushido Justice is 1 experience points for every 3 bandits destroyed, and it doesn't matter who destroys them. So as long as 3 bandits are killed, you're getting an extra experience point for whoever has that Bushido skill. Now, don't confuse this with the other Bushido. Like, the pilot has a Bushido thing that lets them ignore damaged or destroyed. That's the thing that's confusing about Bushido. You have these Bushido skills, but that's different than the Bushido attribute that the pilots have. So, and then you can see they got quite a few to choose from. They can take Mitsubishi Master, which doesn't suffer stress while evading. You can see some of these are the same skills repackaged. And there are duplicates in here. So it's just that they're unique to the... Like, somebody from the USA can't take these skills. These are only for Japanese pilots. And these are only for NATO pilots that have the NATO keyword. So they can be an airplaner. They can ignore the event. So there's no AWACS planes in this like there were in Hornet Leader, but AWACS is represented by, having a skill. And we'll go over the US skills in a second. And these are basically available to everybody. Like if you're Japan, you could take one of these as well. It's just that, these are very specific. And then you can see the Greeks have 3. This one, you get a bonus if you're shaken, which is a weird one. The expend one, you get the +3. Any stress that you get, anytime that somebody shoots at you, if you take a stress result, you're going to get damaged instead. And if you get a damage result, you're destroyed instead. So you get the +3, but it's your Achilles heel. Like if they attack you, you're exposed, basically. And then here's another one. Ignore stress from high altitude. Germany has quite a few. Some really nice ones here. If there's aircraft from 3 or more nations, 1 experience point. So this is encouraging you to mix your nations together. This one, ignore penalty from the EW site. So the game introduced this concept where the enemy has their own electronic warfare. So you have to be playing with the electronic warfare turned on. It's a variant. It looks like a very cool variant. We're going to definitely use it. But it does add some extra complication. And what this is basically saying is that they can ignore the countermeasures used by the enemy. And then there's this new thing called a targeting pod. We'll get into what that is when we start playing. But it doesn't cost any waypoints to equip a targeting pod. And I think this is just like the Hornet Leader air expansion rules. Each of these skills costs you an extra 3 SO to take. Royal Air Force has their own. And then Italy has some as well. Italy's got this neat one, +3 against naval. That's a very specific situation. I don't think I would spend 3 SO points for that. But I'm sure it's handy. And Italy does come with its own unique campaigns. So with those unique campaigns, having the +3 against naval could be actually very helpful for those specific campaigns, because I'm pretty certain that they added target cards that are going to be naval fleets. There's another one, I think Germany has it, where they get a +3 against tanks. So it's a specific type of target. It's not just any target. I find that the expend ones are very cautionary tales. It's really hard to justify spending 3 SO points for something you only use once in a campaign. However, I do think they're pretty good skills for what they do. It's not like they're worthless skills. It's just like, man, is that really worth 3 SO points? That's going to be your dilemma. The ignoring waypoint penalties is always good. There is no such thing as a I just spend 12 SO points and I have a plane that will always go with me. They sort of got rid of all that. They have these SQAs, um, and the rulebook is contradictory. Like at first it says that they can at most be used just once per day, which implies that once you buy them, you can use them every day. But then at the end of the rule set, it says these, do not be confused. It's giving you some real stern clarification that these are one-use resource. So basically, you're spending SO points for these SQAs, and I didn't actually type in the SQAs because they're all so unique. But like one of them was A10s, which are warthogs, right? So those are close air support uh, planes. So if you're doing a mission, those would be supporting the troops on the ground. And so you can actually spend SO points for warthogs to go out over the target and destroy a few sites or whatever the card says, right? Every SQA card tells you what they do. And there's even there's veteran level and average level. Like there's even skill levels for these SQA cards. But they all cost SO points, and they will do something specific for your mission. And you could buy them and hold on to them and just say, hey, I got these warthogs at my disposal, and when the time is right, I can use them. I mean, that's totally... Or you could just wait until you get that perfect mission and then just purchase the warthogs. The point is that there's a whole bunch of these. There's stealth bombers, and like I think if I remember correctly, the stealth bomber lets you go in and destroy a site that's on the ground, and you can do things to manipulate the mission or to give yourself an edge. Um, it's very very handy. The drawback is the SO point cost. At 3 SO points because it costs more if it's a long campaign, which makes no sense to me. Um, but it does. And if they're one use only, that's the thing. If I was able to buy one and then keep it for the whole campaign, that all of a sudden makes them extremely interesting. Because I'm willing to spend 3 SO points for a few of these, like maybe having some A10s at my disposal for once a day for a mission. I mean, that sounds awesome. But if it's 3 SO points to use one time and then it's gone, you know me, I'm not a big fan of that at all. So uh, again, the rulebook contradicts itself. At first, it makes it sound like you could use it every day, and then it ends with no, it's a one use only. So I do think we need clarification on that. I do remember seeing on the DVG forums people arguing over this. I just don't know what the final determination is by the designers. Okay, lastly, after we go through all this, let's talk about the skills that come with the game, the base game. These also come with the base game. And you're going to see these skills over and over again when we talk about the Aces expansion. Because the Aces expansion uses these skills quite a lot. And so here, if you have the 1,000 hours skill, I know it says skill over here as well, but the pilot level is what it's referring to. Has to be average or higher. Remember, you can't be a noob or a green, in other words. You can expend it to ignore an event. If you're vet or higher for 2,000 hours, you can ignore all mission stress penalties. So the campaign map just automatically applies stress. You just get to ignore it. So I'm not going to go through all these yet. Flipping back over here to the Aces expansion. So they have all these aces, and JB, I totally noticed you're in here. I would like to know, can you let me know, JB, is that really something that you backed the game and that allowed you to put your name in? Or did they just put JB in here without any correlation? So JB here is a ace pilot, which means he's automatically legendary, and he has 2 cool, 1 situational awareness, and an air-to-air of 2. So it's not the most perfect air-to-air. Like, normally you could have 3, right? So his air-to-air is not quite as good. But remember, any experience points that any of these guys get, they can give to another pilot. And here's the key thing, though, is every ace, not only are they legendary, but they have 2 skills that come with them for free. Like, they're built into the card. So JB here is a red flag vet and a NORAD vet. So if we come over here, you can see he treats the first damage result as a +1 stress instead, which is a very handy thing to have. I would never pay for it, but if I get it for free, yeah, I'll take it. And then the NORAD vet, where's the NORAD? Why am I not? Oh, right above it. He gets air-to-air +3 against bombers only. Not bandits, but bombers. So that's a very unique. Probably, I'm betting there's just a lot of missions where you need to shoot bombers, and that's the target. But yeah, he would get a +3 against them, which then makes that little 2 look a lot bolder, right? But that's an example. And then Rico here has the patch and Lucky. So Lucky, he can expend it to reduce a destroyed result to damage. So if Lucky somehow gets destroyed by an enemy, he can reduce it to damaged. So he can protect himself from getting destroyed. And then the patch, where are you? I know it's here. Oh, here to go. First attack, he gets a +1 on each mission. Air-to-air or air-to-ground. It's just whatever his first attack is. So that, and so you have a whole list of aces here. Roughly, what did we say, 50 of them? 54, in fact. Now, there's a whole bunch of F-15s, which these are the Eagles, right? That's the whole point of the game. I do applaud the designers for staying focused. There's a bunch of Fighting Falcons. There's some Wild Weasels. Now, these are interesting because you gain SO points for taking these, and you can get them as an ace, which makes it even more interesting. There's some Strike Eagles, which you have to pay for. There's some F-16 ADFs, which again you gain. And there's one Aardvark. Or no, I'm sorry, there's several Aardvarks. And then several Corsairs. And I was going to do the SQAs, but then I stopped. So, when you're choosing aces, per the current understanding of the ace rules, I get to pick 3. And you can see there's a boatload of skills. Now, these skills are only going to be what I highlighted. Nothing that you see below is in the aces expansion. The ace skills are never any of these things below. And they're all Americans, by the way. I don't think there's any from other countries. I could be wrong. Which is why they only use these skills. So, if you get to pick 3 of them, you basically, there's multiple ways to look at it. I mean, you could look at it as, now remember, the ace is going to be the most highest promoted person on the mission. And so if they're the flight leader, if they have SA points, they could give them to other pilots. So this guy with 0 SA points is going to be horrible as a flight leader if your goal as a flight leader is to give away SA points to other pilots. So this is very, very poor, even though that's a really good number. So I can tell you that looking at these aces, not all aces are created equal, right? So if you're looking at it from a statistics perspective, although his cool is fantastic, because aces still get stress, and they can still be unfit for a mission. So you got to worry about those things. Like this guy has great SA points, but he has 0 cool, so I'm less interested in him for that reason, because he's going to be stressed out all the time. Same with Tonic here. But as you can see, there's some happy mediums here, where they have cool and they have SA points and a really good ADA. I mean, Clue looks fantastic. So what are these 2 skills? Bogey Dope, when he's using an SA, he gets +1 air-to-air for that turn. That's even better. Because so if he's your guy that you're trying to, shoot, and by the way, the green means that they're fast-rated pilots. So he's not a fast-rated pilot. He's a slow pilot. but he can use one of those SA points on himself. And if he does, he gets +1 A to A, which, we're using these guys to shoot at bandits. And aggressor, add 1 ADA against bandits. So he gets another +1. So that would be +2 on his first shot. That's fantastic. Like, I really love Clue for that reason. And in fact, that's the other way to look at this is I think this skill is great. So like how am I going to highlight the skills that I really like? I'm going to I don't know, let's do a blue, right? I really like the aggressor skill. The Bogey Dope's not bad, but like this one is just all the time. So I really like that one. I'm not a fan. I mean, I wouldn't, whine about having it. I just, and then remember, these are all aces, so they're going to have the skill level requirements. Check ride. You just start with +2 experience points. That's a really interesting one because if it's an ace, you don't get experience points. But I think check ride is. Remember, these are skills you can just buy for your regular pilots. I don't think any of the aces have check ride. So that's just something you can buy for your regular pilots. Obviously, I always love cool +1. These are situational. You want to give these to the pilots that have no cool, but combat stash. And I don't think an ace has combat stash either. Let me check. Nope, none of them do. Some of them had. I saw a Wild Weasel. This is +1 against sights, but not the target. You know what this is for? AGM 88s. You want those? You want Wild Weasel on the AGM 88s because the guys shooting the AGM 88s, their job is taking out the radar sights. Like if I had a Prowler or a Growler in this game, that's who I would give it to. The Wild Weasel. This is an interesting one, but it's just an expend. The Targeting Pod Expert. If you have a Targeting Pod, you get a +2 air to ground instead of a +1. So Targeting Pod gives you an extra +1 air to ground. I'm going to put that one as a good one. That's a really good one. Again, another first attack +1. Let's see, do not suffer. This is not a bad one. I don't know if I would buy it, but evading is something we do. And you know me, I don't care for the expends, but like remove stress from 5 different pilots. New and green gets -2. Everybody else is -1. I mean, there's some pretty interesting skills. I totally credit the game for doing some cool stuff. This is air to ground +1 for target only. We already did that one. Air to ground +3 against only airfields. The very specific skill. If only using standard weapons, meaning you didn't use any SO points. +1 air to air and air to ground. That's a fantastic one. Because we very rarely use SO points unless we're buying Phoenix missiles or whatever. But that's a great one. Now here's an interesting one. Remember this one. Cannon. +1. Cannon is that thing on your plane that hits with only a 10. I don't know how I missed it, but there's these French planes in the this Mirage G, I think. This is not the French expansion. This is the experimental craft. And right here, look at this. These pilots are gunfighters. They hit on a 7 instead of a 10 with their guns. So these French pilots, I guess, hit on a 7, whereas all other pilots hit on a 10. And then if you bought the gunfighter skill, you could turn that 7 into a 6. I mean, that's doable. You can then use your gun to actually do some damage to things. But remember, the gun is a range 0 weapon. What a heck of a way to play. But there are these 2 pilots here who have built-in equipment, and then these pilots hit on a 9, and these are French as well. And I think this was the French expansion. And I may have missed a few other ones, like because I don't usually pay attention to the cannon stat, but these French planes they do hit on a 9 instead of a 10. So that was something I noticed. Well, there's also another cannon +1, so then you can turn it into an 8. So you can really get that cannon skill to be really good. I just don't know why I'd want to do that. The key to even in the 1980s is you don't want to be up close and personal. Don't, in spite of what the Top Gun movie teaches you, um, you want to shoot your stuff from far away and make it a smooth mission. But the thing is what I really applaud about the game is if you really want to go in and be some, you know, you can really get some interesting gameplay out of it if you make a French squad, because there are French campaigns, right? You can have an all French squad, and then just load up with all these cannon experts and just go in and old school it. And you can use cannons to destroy the target as well. So there's a lot of things there. What else? If all aircraft are the same type, +1 to air and air to ground. Now, this one is a really difficult skill to use. The same type means they have to all be F-15C. Now, you can see that there's like F-16 ADF or F-15 Strike Eagle. It has to be the C. So that means I would have to have all pilots that are of the same exact type in order to get that bonus. That's a tough, very tough. So everybody has to be the exact same type of plane. You can't have any mixture. In the Hornet Leader game, that actually might not be bad because I could go in with all Hornets. But even this is like the Hornet, G or Hornet F versus Hornet E. Those are two different types. So even in Hornet Leader, it's hard to have a mission where it's just all regular Hornets, which I think was the Hornet C. You know me, I'm never a fan of the 2 experience points starting. Because if I'm going to be able to get +1 experience points some other way, that's much better. But there aren't a lot of experience point ones on here, as you can see. So, who do you choose? Well, obviously, the year matters for a lot of these. Like, this is 1986. I saw campaign maps that were in the 1960s and 70s. So the year's going to matter, and based on the year and what you want, obviously the Eagles are 76 plus. This is your bread and butter of the game. I think the Strike Eagles are your improved version. They tend to have more of a air-to-ground component, whereas the regular F-15 has no air-to-ground. So what you're mostly gaining is air-to-ground capability. And then the F-16 Fighting Falcon has some air-to-ground capability, 8 weight points. The Strike Eagle has 12, which is as good as an Intruder. In our Hornet Leader game, 12 weight points is impressive. 8 is pretty standard. And if we go through, you can see this drops to 6. There's some in here, like the Aardvark, a really good bomber, 12 weight points. Goes back to 67, so you can use those before the F-16s. Some of these are pretty wild. Like that one has 5 weight points. I forgot to put for here what the Canadian weight points are. That's interesting. Same here. I forgot to put their weight points down. And, well, actually they don't have weight points. But here, like 5 weight points, and let me find it. There's one here that only had 2 weight points. 6, 8, 6, 8. Here we go. 3 weight points. The F-104J for Japan. Now, you're going to gain 15 SO points for taking him. But if you use him, he only has 3 weight points for the whole mission. That's quite a weird plane. I mean, but you could do it. Like if you want to get those 15 extra SO points, so you can buy skills or whatever. I mean, that's why you do it. But then you're basically going into every day with only 11 squad members instead of 12. Now, that's where it gets interesting because look, it's only 15 experience points to go from noob to vet. I mean, this is your noob. You take this guy, you gain the 15 SO points, make him your noob, and who cares if he levels up or doesn't level up? I mean, you only took him for the extra SO points. That's something you can do. Um, and if we keep going, I would swear right here, these Phantom 2s for Greece have 2 weight points. 2! And look at this. You don't gain any SO points for taking them. You don't gain anything. You're going to take a plane that only has 2 weight points. Why? Why would you do this? And look at how many, like, they take forever to level up. These are the worst planes in the entire game. And you get those with the Greek Hellenistic expansion. It's a complete waste of cards. I would love to know why a designer put those in there with 2 weight points. Unless that's some kind of bug, defect. And here's another one with 2 weight points from Italy. Same deal, except look at this one. You're gaining 18 SO points. That's a lot of SO points. So I can understand why I would take these Italian ones, because I want to gain 18 SO points. And maybe I made the mistake. Maybe it was written on the card and I forgot to write it down. But we're going to have to check. What was it? The Greek Phantom 2s. Those are horrible. But yeah, so not all cards are created equal here. When you get into stuff like the Netherlands or whatever, I mean, these are all legit. Norway here, you get 12 SO points for taking the Norwegian one. What was the Norwegian skill? It's an expend, which is not as good. What did we say? It was Portugal and Denmark had really good ones, right? Netherlands isn't bad. It's just a weird skill. Turkey is really good. Okay, and then Spain is okay. There's nothing wrong with it. All right, so let's say Turkey, Denmark, and Portugal are our desired. Turkey are Phantom 2s with 8 weight points. That's legit. Those are legit planes that can go with you on a mission. This one has horrible experience point requirements, but this one's reasonable. Turkey is legit. And then I said Denmark. Those are J-35 Drakens. You're going to gain SO points, but it's only 4 weight points, so that's really poor. I don't know what a J-35 is. I'm not familiar with that, but you can see here these are air-to-air, and this is air-to-ground. So I'd have to pull out the pilot card, like what kind of weapons can they equip? But assuming they can equip decent weapons, so what these guys get is they get +1 experience point. And look at this. It's only 14 to go from noob to vet. I mean, these guys level up fast even without the extra experience points. Like, if you had them on their own, they level up fast. But you can easily make a Denmark your noob, which you can see this guy doesn't even have a penalty at noob. Like, some of these are pretty decent. And then cool value is good. Situational awareness is good. I mean, 3 air-to-air? I mean, that's good. The weight point is what stinks, and you get 9 SO points, though, for taking him. Make him your noob, right? So noob to ace, he needs 20 experience points. He's going to get 3 on every mission instead of 2. So in 7 missions, he'll be an ace. Denmark is solid. And then we said Portugal was an interesting one. You get the free SO points. Those are the Corsairs, so those are bombers. 8 weight points is totally doable. These ones are fast with 3 air-to-ground. That's only 2 air-to-ground, so that's less helpful. And look at the experience point requirements are horrible. That's not all that great either, but bring them in, make them your average or better. You get free SO points to have these as your Corsairs. Having Portugal as your Corsair is way better than taking these NATO Corsairs for the free SO points. Um, Although this goes to 1970, whereas the Portugal down here is 1981. So you got to pay attention to the date ranges. Like, I wanted to put this in the same section as the other Corsairs, but you can't. And there's Corsairs like here. Like, these are 1975 for Greece. So they all have different year ranges and whatnot. So you can't quite put them all together. But like, if I want to take a Corsair on a mission, though, uh, I'm really thinking, the Portuguese ones. If as long as I'm willing to spend 3 of my SO points on that skill, that's looking really attractive. But obviously, these guys are your NATO specific ones, and let's see. This one's for air to air, so the Corsairs are not good. -1 stress for everyone in the squadron. It's cool. Ignore the event. If you have 3 or more nations on a mission, ignore all stress. Like, the NATO Tiger's the one that I think would be the best. You can maybe take one of these and make them a NATO Tiger. There's another NATO section. Oh, these are F-16s. So you do gain SO points for taking them. So if I were to take a NATO with me, it'd be one of these guys. And these are air-to-air only. So that explains that air-to-air skill. NATO Tiger would still be good for them, but this Black Sea Vet would also be good. Air objectives on strike card. So it's only the air objectives. You're fighting against bombers or you're doing a fighter sweep. It's not going to be bandits, but it could be helpful. But yeah, so you can see you got some NATO guys here that are air-to-air only. That's it. There's no other NATO. It's confusing because everybody else is in NATO. So when we start playing the game, there's sheets that have all this laid out. The NATO skills might be available to everybody and not just the NATO people. I'll have to check. But they very specifically have the NATO flag, and there's very specifically named NATO skills. So it's my understanding that it's specifically for only these pilots. So it makes the decision making really challenging because you could start with a skill and say, hey, I like this skill, and then go backwards and figure out which pilots you want to that have that skill. And that could include the aces, right? I could say, hey, I want this skill, the Wild Weasel. But I don't want it for an F-15C. That would actually not make any sense. But if I wanted here's one right here. Corsair. Hillbilly has the Wild Weasel. Corsairs are perfect for AGM-88s. In fact, in Hornet Leader, that's what I use them for all the time. There's another one here on an F-16 Fighting Falcon with the patch. That would actually be a very interesting one. This one has Spite. Spite is a horrible skill. If you're destroyed, you get a free attack on the target with any of your remaining weapons. But you're still destroyed. You just get one last hurrah. Why would I want this skill? That's a stupid skill. As you can see, Wild Weasel is not used very often here. Here's another one. That's on a Strike Eagle. So, now that's interesting. Because a Strike Eagle, you're paying a lot of SO points to get one. The aggressor skill's really good, though. But see, that's against bandits. So you got Wild Weasel. Like, that's too much of a... You're mixing it up too much. But it would work. It would work. Because you could have a anti-air and AGM-88s, which actually that would work well. So, you could go after the radar, and does he have SO points? That's the question. Where are you at? Was it this guy? Yes. No SA points. 0. That's horrible. If he had an SA point, I could go fast, shoot the bandits, or fire my AGM-88 and then go slow. but that makes him less valuable. But anyways, you see what's going on in my head and how I'm starting to think about things. Um, if flight leader, give experience to other pilots on mission. Now the aces already do that. Um, but you can see uh, it's like I don't understand. Like, why does he have the commander skill? Unless that is only a Corsair leader rule. Um, I don't know. Like, do I have to spend 3 SO points to give my ace that skill? So that way he can give his experience points to other pilots on the mission? Like, why does an ace pilot have that skill? That seems like a complete waste. Because I thought ace pilots already gave their experience points to other pilots. So there's things like that that come up in my analysis and looking at the game. I don't know the answer to those. And I went on DVG. You'll actually see I posted a question of does anybody can point me to a list of errata that's being compiled. And I don't know why, but DVG's been really close to the chest about it. They did say that they were going to publish errata within a week, and it's been over a week, and I still don't see it. And they do everything through Facebook, which drives me nuts. I want to see it on Board Game Geek because you can just put the list of the errata on the files section of Board Game Geek. And as much as Board Game Geek is the most toxic place I've ever been, well, Facebook is pretty toxic these days, but Facebook's worse. And I don't like the management of files on the Danvers DVG Facebook page. But some of you guys, I love you all. You're always welcome to the table. But you're old codgers with your Facebook. There's even people that go to Facebook and put customer service questions there, and I'm like, what are you guys doing? But anyways, Board Game Geek. There's a file section. You put it in the file section. You're done. There's nothing else to worry about. Anyways, it's a first world problem. So here you have it. And now I have a guide where I'm going to put like type of aircraft and do I recommend them? And I was going to do that because in Hornet Leader, I went through every pilot and did this. In Hornet Leader, there wasn't 250 of them. So I don't know if I'm going to do that for this. But that was my original intent when I created this. But for now, this is an extremely helpful guide. And when we're selecting our pilots, we can see, hey, I want somebody who, okay, fine, they have no SAs, situational awareness, but they're at least fast. Some of these have SA and are fast, which are really good, but zero cool, right? And then, that's not cool. Pun intended. Anyways, there it is. Next video, we'll get out a campaign and get started. They do have an introductory campaign, which is like a training mission. We are not doing that one. It looks like it's for somebody who's never played a leader game before ever. But we'll try something else. And as always, thanks for watching. Stay awesome.